So everybody, I am so excited to be here. My name is Danielle Morris, and I am the Global Public Health Lead at Amazon Web Services. And this is our second opportunity to highlight and amplify the incredible work of women who are using technology to advance global social impact. I am so incredibly honored to be a part of an organization such as Amazon Web Services that is committed to amplifying the voices and the stories of women and underrepresented voices in technology. So without further ado, I am going to ask that my panel introduces themselves and tells us a little bit about their journey to why they decided to leverage their voice and their passion to use and improve the outcomes of populations around the world. So, Indu, may I get you to introduce yourself?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. My name is Indu Navar. I'm a tech entrepreneur. I'm an electrical engineer with the computer science masters. I was one of the founding team of WebMD, and also I started my company called ACIRAH Corporation, which I founded, and I was CEO for about 12 years, which I exited in 2013. And since then, I've been advising and investing in companies. An unfortunate situation brought me here. My husband was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disease, who was actually one of the co-founders of AWS. He was there for 18 years at Amazon. Unfortunately, we lost him to ALS in 2019. And I just felt a huge disservice was done for him and our family. That is, everything we have built as technologists, everything we enjoy today in our lives as technology, has not entered healthcare. We started WebMD in 1996. And 99, when we went IPO, I said, things must have changed from that time. Not much. So here I am. I started EverythingALS, which is Peter Cohen Foundation, to keep him alive through our work to bring technology to neurodegenerative diseases. Thank you.
Thank you. You're going to get chills listening to these stories, so make sure you listen. So, Shelley, can I get you to introduce yourself?
I am Shelley Taylor. You can tell I'm a dance fanatic. I don't need music even to dance. So my company's trellyz. It's humanitarian and public sector software, supply chain, logistics, and that kind of came about randomly through having, I think all of us had some personal story here. I had a son who died at 32, 14 years ago. And I read this book that said, you know, of all the mothers who lost all or their only child, at 7 years, you're either going to begin to live again or you're not. And I'm like, I'm going to be one of those who does. And on the 7th year death day anniversary of my son, I just had seen that little boy, Aylin, on the beach, the Syrian child who washed up on the beach. And I just had this flash that I could make, because I've been in tech since tech existed in the 90s. And I thought I can make an app for people like his family, refugees and migrants, who can find this help they need when they need it. And that was just like some kind of a calling. So a lot of what we're doing is not really necessarily about money, although I'm a very big capitalist pig and have been my whole life. One thing I wanted to say, I really am into money. And I have a little problem with this whole social impact stuff, because sometimes it's like taken as something else, but literally building the railroads, all that stuff had a social impact, but it was also a bunch of capitalists, mostly men, who did that. So I think we're all doing amazing things too. But I wanted to say a couple of things about my history, because normally I am the oldest person in a room, and today I've been so thrilled to find all these women my age and older here, and there's probably some men too. That's really exciting to me, because I think that the biggest taboo I've seen has been against age, even though I'm a black woman. Being old has been the worst in tech. So I'm the person who started socially responsible investment in 1984 in the institutions like Prudential and Shearson Lehman Hutton. And then in 1990, corporate social responsibility. And then in 1996, I created user interface, all the language we know about the internet, like global navigation, breadcrumb, all those words I created. And why do I say that now and take a little bit too much of my time? It's because I was told by a female venture capitalist last year when I was raising money, and I decided not to at that point. She said, no one's going to believe it when you say that, and that is a problem. That was a woman. She said, no one's going to believe that's really you, so I wouldn't talk about that because it had to have been a man who did it. And I'm like, this is a woman, and She's telling me to lie about who I actually am and that nobody would believe it. So I'm thrilled to be in this group of women. Thank you.
Thank you. Valencia.
Hi, I'm Shelley Taylor. I am the head of marketing and communications at APDS, which is a public benefit corporation. We're also the only B corporation in the corrections reform space in the United States. And my journey here started in 2020 because I was running my own marketing and communications firm for over a decade. I also have a wellness brand, a deodorant, plant-based, zero waste, shameless plug. But I started the process in 2020 after a long career in CBG, and I just wanted to do something a little more meaningful. I wanted to do something that had a lot more impact. And so I joined APDS, and our mission is to help break the cycle of incarceration.
Thank you. And Dr. Bridgette McCullough, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Bridgette McCullough. I am a geneticist and a lawyer. I am also the founder of ACIRAH, which is a digital clinical trial recruitment company that focuses on recruiting African American women to clinical trials. So I'm going to give you a very brief kind of working backwards of how I ended up here. In 2002, just before I began graduate school at the University of Chicago in 19th century French art history, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. I don't have a bad story to tell you. This is all good because I'm here. It was not only in my colon, it was in my reproductive organs. By the way, I have a 16-year-old daughter. It was in my digestive system. It was on my gallbladder, and my GI surgeon told me, if it's on your liver, we'll just cut your liver in half, and it'll rejuvenate itself. So everything that happened was unbelievably stunning to me. The fact that my grandmother died from colon cancer 7 years prior, the hematologist-oncologist told me, we're going to contact the pathology department of the hospital where she died, and we're going to get her cancer cells and measure those cancer cells against yours to see if they're the same. They weren't. The treatment that I got that not only saved my life, there were 8 doctors, surgeons, clinical researchers, and specialists, all at the University of Chicago, that were a part of a team that was solely committed to keeping me alive, and not only keeping me alive, but maintaining the integrity of my reproductive organs, my digestive system, as well as my life. That doesn't happen for Black women. When I was in the hospital, and they were doing everything they could to diligently and very beautifully, may I add, to the tune in the backdrop with Sade playing in my surgery rooms, in my recovery room, in the ICU. It was just awesome. This was during the holiday season. But there were 3 Black women that had the exact same thing, and they died that holiday season. So when I went on to a very successful career as a 19th century French art historian, spending 2 years in Paris, my work is a part of the documentation center at the Musée d'Orsay. I have curated exhibitions in New York, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Paris, and Berlin, and worked for a year at the Central European University in Budapest, Hungary. But while I was doing all of that, I also decided to start an art advising business. I got Goldman Sachs to fund my company with $2.5 million, and I had every single prominent, high net worth, African American actor, actress, politicians, sports stars, and a lot of those people died during the time when I was taking care of their art collections. So I realized something profound, that I can continue to help rich people decorate their walls, or I can actually change careers, do something dramatically different, go into biotechnology and the law, and instead of waiting for a system to catch up and actually access and create a pathway for Black people to actually be able to get into clinical trials, get access to drugs and various therapies, so when they have the unfortunate mistake of being diagnosed with cancer, they will be able to survive.
Thank you so much. Question for you, Shelley. Over the last decade or so, the global refugee crisis has really reached a breaking point, driven by climate change and poverty and political instability. How are you leveraging data or technology to anticipate the needs of refugees and link them with the services offered by global humanitarian relief communities?
Well, that's a big question. So, first of all, we offer people access to information through an app, which of course is how we all access information today. And when I first started this app, RefAid, I went to the UNHCR and to the Red Cross and these other organizations and said, could you please tell me if this is a good idea to put all of your services in one app so people can find the help they need wherever they are? And they said, oh, that's a great idea. And so I started down this path because I had an app creation platform, which I will just digress on for a second, which was built to help artists and musicians reach their fans. I could make apps for celebrities, but I kept telling people that they needed to own their own data, and this is before Cambridge Analytica, and it's when Facebook was taking everything, so I was happy to hear those stories this morning. Nobody really thought it mattered to own your own data. So I had this platform that made apps really quickly and easily, and I'm like, oh, well, I can make an app for refugees over the weekend, which we did. And I thought it would be easy to get the information from the NGOs and the government into this app. I just had to give them an entry, way to list it on the website. But I found out they didn't even have a list on paper, let alone Excel spreadsheets. And that's like Amazon trying to deliver books without even knowing where their inventory is or if they had any. So when you ask about how do we leverage data, we had to create a way to make data, because we're talking about not just the NGO and the nonprofit sector, but we're talking about government as well. There's a county in the Northwest, I won't say the name of it, but they have $6 billion a year budget, and they don't know what services they have and how much they're spending on them. None of it's documented. So we're at a very early stage in the public sector and the nonprofit sector in just collecting data to make it available to people who have the right to have it, which is us, not to mention the people who are the most vulnerable. So I think we're we're talking about Web3 and all these other very modern things, but when you think of it, the government is probably the biggest investor in anything that has to do with public good, and they're using analog tools from 50 years ago. So we have a long way to go.
Thank you for that. So now I'd like to turn it over to you, Indu. According to medical experts, it takes generally about 2 years to diagnose ALS. Just think about 2 years. Your company, EverythingALS, is really pioneering approaches to use artificial intelligence or machine learning to reduce the time to diagnosis and hopefully improve treatments as well as hopefully secure a cure. Can you talk about how services like AI and ML can be applied to research on diseases such as ALS?
Yes. I just wanted each one of you, just raise your hands if you know anyone who have actually been diagnosed or have neurodegenerative disease. Could be ALS, dementia, Alzheimer, Parkinson's, rare disease. I see about 90% of the people would raise their hand. This is the problem that we have. We all know that this problem exists, but today we're diagnosing at stage 4 level of cancer. Think about the world that we did not know how to diagnose cancer at stage 0 or stage 1. Everybody was getting diagnosed at stage 4, and we were trying to save them. What would the world look like? That's the world we live in neurology. And people pass away from the time we get diagnosed, and we don't talk about it. We move on as though life is okay until it happens again. So when I saw my husband, who both of us come from the tech world, and everything we've touched turned into something, we have revolutionized, changed the world in many other verticals. And in healthcare, it felt like there was a mirage that got lifted, and we went to caveman's world. And we would ask for electricity, and they would give us firewood and matchstick. That's how I felt. There is no way to diagnose. And I see him deteriorating every day, and the doctors would say, come back after 8 months, we'll see how bad he's gonna get. And once he gets to 2 upper motor neuron and 2 lower motor neuron as being hurt or dead, then we'll diagnose him.
And then we put you in clinical trials and try to save you. And if we can't save you, we'll give you feeding tube and ventilator so you can be dead, but breathing on the machine for the rest of your life. That's the state we are in neurology, which opened up my eyes. And I thought I was retired after I sold my previous company. So I said, no, this problem requires me to be hands-on again. And today, like Wendy said, I'm volunteering, but I have a team, I have a company. So it's not about me, it's about saving people with this disease. So what we did was what we call citizen-driven research with open innovation. And we're putting a template together. This is going to be for all of neurology, all of neurodegenerative disease, as to how we can actually bring AI and machine learning to look at physiological data. Like there is a lot of signatures in our changes in speech, the way we walk, the way we breathe, the way we think. But today, none of us know how our brain is doing. You might go and look at your glucose, your cholesterol, but we have no idea how our brain is. So that's what we are building. So these signatures, these things happen 5, 10 years before we get diagnosed. So we are really looking at these signatures, these physiological signatures, and so we do research, quick research. We're moving at the startup speed, and this was 18 months ago. We started the research. We looked at facial videos and speech of ALS patients, and today we're talking about pre-submission to FDA, because we can actually look at the signature of rate of speech change along with the lip changes in the facial movements. So there is a lot of signatures, and now we're doing another research with how people walk, their balance, their gait, their strides. And my chief of staff is here, Mira, who runs that research. And with breathing and speech, all of them are implicated. And what we have done is we've got about 5,000 ALS families we work with, and we have a renowned neurologist from MGH, which is Harvard, Johns Hopkins, and MIT from the AI community from MIT, IBM. We have our own data science team, and we have about 10 pharma companies, Bristol Myers Squibb, Biogen, you name it, like, you know, who's who, Johnson & Johnson. And FDA is partnered with us to really accelerate this. And we're looking at this as it's a crisis like COVID. You know, we are bringing same template of all of us working together so we can actually get these tools, these AI and machine learning. This is software as a device. You know, the software can actually change the way we get diagnosed and how we actually understand this disease.
Powerful, powerful. So, you know, kind of speaking about health and how we need to improve the access to healthcare, I want to go back to you, Bridgette, and talk about how you're using ACIRAH, your business, to leverage technology to improve the outcomes of Black women in particular.
Sure, I'm happy to. So technology is a game changer. So I think about it, and I think not only am I able to download movies, buy clothes, buy groceries, all within a matter of a few seconds, you can take technology and go into, create roots within the African American community. You can take an app, for example, and create content that explains to a Black woman why she should be in a clinical trial, why she's particularly needed in a clinical trial. You can even explain to a Black woman that the standard bearer for a clinical trial is a 175-pound middle-aged white man. Now that body is not the same as a 120-pound, 30-something-year-old Black woman. It's just not the same. The same melanin that makes my skin as dark as it is the same enzyme that's running through my blood, that's in all of my organs, so I'm going to metabolize drugs incredibly different. So that's why she's needed. You can also explain the various phases of clinical trials, what happens in phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can also reassure a Black woman that we will no longer, because of the laws that have been put in place, and I know this as a lawyer because that's all I studied and that's what I focus on, there are human rights laws, there are regulatory laws to prevent another Henrietta Lacks from happening under informed consent. the Tuskegee syphilis experiment from happening. And you can do this in the same way that when I was a kid with ABC Saturday morning and Schoolhouse Rock, and I learned how a bill became a law in a matter of like a minute. You can do this same thing by bringing in famous people, popular people to tell this story. So what I did was leverage not only technology, but I leveraged every single person that I had as clients, that I had as colleagues at the U of C, at Northwestern and Cornell, to come in and to do these little snippets to be able to explain what a clinical trial is and why it's important. One of the other things, and I'll make this part really quickly, because of the relationship that I had with luxury brands as a curator and as an art historian, I partnered with Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, Estee Lauder, brands of La Mer, Tom Ford, and Jo Malone. And before the pandemic, when I was doing all of this via analog and having black women and some black men, which I've gotten a little under 10,000 black people signed up as members of ACIRAH, ready for a clinical trial, to self-complete a health and medical history forms, social and cultural behavior forms, something that's never been done in the United States, if you can even believe that. Had them to do that. And how did that happen? Inside of a Louis Vuitton flagship store on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. It's extremely difficult to feel depressed about your health when you're drinking champagne and you're buying and getting Louis Vuitton and everything else. So that's the key, because I know how it makes me feel when I'm in those stores. And I was able to get people to sign to fill out a 150 data set point survey for them. So what I decided to do with ACIRAH is to basically create in your hand Wakanda forever, to create verbanium and that system that those people live in, and just do it virtually. And you can do that with digital technology.
Thank you so much. Valencia, I want to, the work that you're leading at APDS is really seeking to transform the American criminal justice system. How's APDS using technology, or where are there opportunities to use technology to completely upend the system?
Yes, so one of the big things is that the United States has a very serious problem with incarceration. It is normalized. America, the United States, is the largest incarcerator of people in the world. So we incarcerate more men and women than any other country in the entire world, which is ridiculous. We spend $182 billion on incarceration every year. There's 2.2 million people they're incarcerated in this country, which is atrocious. So we have to do a better job of not normalizing mass incarceration. We do a few things to help break the cycle of incarceration. Our mission is, and our vision is that every justice-impacted person will have a living wage career, because your chances of having a career when you reenter society will reduce your recidivism rate. And so that's really important that we have education technology opportunities. We've done a few things. We're leading the way with Massachusetts. So Massachusetts and APDS, as well as AWS, have combined forces. In July of this year, Massachusetts signed a bill that everyone in the state, statewide, day one, will have access to education. Right now, only 17% of the people that are incarcerated have access to education while they're incarcerated. So yeah, that's pretty astounding. And so what we're doing is we're throwing away the key. We're actually creating an environment that we're saying it's okay that you are warehoused, and we are not interested in investing in education technology. So what we're doing, and where the opportunity is one-on-one. So instead of this mass classroom where people are housed and it's a very limited opportunity, we provide tablets and we provide specifically designed training courses and curriculums, from GED to advanced courses to rehabilitation to certifications like the one we just recently did in DC, which was a pilot program with AWS. So we did a cloud computing certification program. 85% of the people in the DC jail that took the course passed, and we're going to expand that course in 2023. So we're really excited about that. We use platforms like Chime. 90% of our platforms, our education technology platforms, are run through AWS platforms. So education technology is definitely the key, using one-on-one tablets so that everyone can have an opportunity from day one. And so we're really pushing that charge of advocacy after Massachusetts to get every state in the country to, invoke the law, like the policy, that day one access for education.
Now you see why I said that you need to be awake for this conversation. I wish we had more time, but you all, just in getting to know you, have inspired me deeply, more than you actually know. But we're sitting in a room full of incredible women, incredible allies and men, who are either in this space already of thinking about like technology to change systems, or to create access to resources that they may not have ever had. What is that one piece of advice that you would give these people to take home with them to jumpstart their journey to creating change? Can I get, I'll start with Indu, and then if we could just come back this way.
Perfect. It's always impossible before it becomes possible. So always remember that. If you have a gut feeling, we heard this many, many times, follow it. It's always possible. So always remember, everything is impossible before it becomes possible.
So I don't have I'm not quite so optimistic and positive. We heard a lot about how women have such little access to financing, and yet, as you can see from the women we heard all day today, women are doing amazing things, and they are not able to access the resources they need in order to do more of the amazing things that we need. So my advice, I think, to young women is to not look for funding from venture capitalists and outside funding, to just bootstrap your way into success, because I've wasted a lot of time in my life trying to find money when, less than 2%. I think it's way less than that. I think that's an inflated number. But it's such a small chance of raising money. Women who invest and social impact funds tend to be more risk averse. And so the big ideas that we as women have, which are solving real problems, are even less likely to get financed. So I think the practical thing I would say is just bootstrap and eat what you kill, and don't waste a lot of time trying to get somebody to give you money.
Valencia.
Sure, I love what you just said, Shelley, who's my sister because we have the same last name. Just discovered that. My philosophy has always been as a founder of agency and starting my own business, and even with APDS, is to do, to be, and to go, right? So just do the research, do the background, understand the business that you want to get into, understand the purpose and the proposition that you're trying to do. Also to be, which is to believe in yourself. Because that's half the battle, just believing in yourself and what your property is, and then just go, like she said, just go and do. Because if you wait for the investor, it may not come, and the opportunity will pass, and you'll still be talking about this goal that you want to achieve. So be, do, go.
Dr. McCullough.
Bob Dylan has a song that's, the title is Serve Somebody. But I've got something better for you. Be a servant of life. Because if you are a servant of life, there is no way you would look at any face or person that's different from your own and not want the very, very best for that person. You want to push society forward. My advisors, from the doctors and surgeons that I was with to the professors and the curators that guided me all the way to my grandparents that guided me through my life was to push society forward. And every one of us have the ability to do that.
Thank you. And if I can just leave you with one quote, my favorite quote that always inspires me, it's by Zora Neale Hurston. She said, "Jump at the sun, you might not land on the sun, but at least you'll get off the ground." So I really hope that you all take a message from these inspiring women and the women that you've heard today to really create change, because each one of us has that power. And as someone said earlier, 1 + 1 is 11. Thank you.